So here we are in the middle of the woods where I belong. And this is a new location, but this set is going to be temporary because we're still moving in. And then Wendell, you're back at base?
I am.
Back at base. But not like bass like you drop in a song, like bass like layer. All right, so let's get into everything that's going on. First off, the Australian election has happened, and the only reason we're bringing this up, we don't get into that sort of politics usually, but this has an impact on the internet in Australia, and there's actually a pretty good conversation going on the forum here. Rudster started a topic: Tony Abbott to stop FTTP to keep current failing infrastructure. Now, FTTP was a large $24 billion upgrade that was going on that was going to bring fiber to a lot of people. We're talking gigabit fiber to a lot of people in Australia. And
FTTP is fiber to the premises.
Yeah, it was going to be bringing fiber to a lot of people. So now this has been stopped, and there's a really interesting conversation going on about it. I don't want to weigh in too much because I'm sort of ignorant as far as the politics go. I do want to mention that Rupert Murdoch stuck his nose in there, and he was he was really pulling for Abbott to win because he did not want FTTP to go through. Because if FTTP went through, it would sort of make his cable empire somewhat irrelevant or less relevant. And he can't be the king of the internet, but he can be the king of cable empire. He knows how that works. It's all like a bunch of content feeds that he can control. He can't control the content feeds on the internet. So, and what do you make of all this?
Well, fiber optics is a 100-year infrastructure, and the copper infrastructure in Australia was installed 100 years ago. They've gotten 100 years out of the copper. It's time to replace it. And what are they going to replace it with for the next 100 years? Fiber optics. It makes sense, but no, that's not what they're doing. They're trying to put in some fiber as like a distribution thing, so it like comes to the node, and then the node serves the neighborhood on the old copper infrastructure. But their goals are ridiculous. It's like 25 megabit by 2029, and it's like I've got news for you.
2019, right?
Or 2019, yeah. But
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. That's just not even enough bandwidth for Netflix, even.
25. I thought someone posted a video in here. It's in the comments. You guys will have to. Which one is it? It's one of the links in the comments here. So check it out. There's a video that goes to a group that went all over different parts of the world, and they were trying to sell Abbott's internet plan, and it's pretty damn funny. People are like 25 by when? The guy from Singapore was like, dude, I have 200 right now. If you're in Australia, I'm sorry about the internet. I'm not going to make any comments on the political policies. Labor Party, is out. It looks like. Just let me know what you guys think about it, and I guess we'll move on now. Apple, they've got a new iPhone coming out, and it's a low-cost iPhone. I'm not sure who they're going to be competing with here, maybe the lower-cost Samsung devices, Motorola's, and that sort of thing. But it seems like a large trend in the smartphone world is up. Everyone's doing more expensive, sets, and Apple's going to make a cheap set. And here's the interesting thing. The China Labor Watch said that Apple has come in, and with this device, they are breaking like all of the laws, all the labor laws. People are standing for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. They're going over Apple's self-imposed limit of 60 working hours a week. So it seems like they're only getting 2 30-minute breaks per day for a 12-hour day. That's a bit excessive, but they want to get this phone out. I mean these reports are just from China Labor Watch, so I'm not going to state them as fact just yet, but it sounds about normal. I mean, when you look at the way things were at Foxconn, and Apple didn't do anything about that, even though they were clearly aware about it until someone released something to the press, and then they were like, oh my God, we're going to do something about it because we got to, worry about our public image and not those people that are killing themselves and jumping off buildings and all that. So yeah. And in the meantime, the Moto X is the first U.S. smartphone that has been, first smartphone to be made in the U.S., and it's just as cheap to produce in the U.S. as it would have been outside the U.S.
That's the real story here.
How does this work? Now, I mean, of course, this is, Google now owns Motorola. The Moto X is going to be hopefully a pure device. Are you going to get one of these, Wendell?
I would like to get one of these, but I really want to know if the updates are going to come from Google or Motorola. Because if I've got to wait on my Android updates, I'm not doing it.
Do want to note that most of the parts in this phone are not made in the USA, but it is being assembled in the USA. So keep that in mind, y'all. You know, it's important to know stuff like that. I'm going to touch on this quickly. Newegg has been fighting the patent troll for a long time called Sovereign. Sovereign Software, I guess a while back, a year ago or so, they were suing a lot of companies, or they were just sending threatening letters, and they were collecting millions of dollars from companies. And they essentially said that they owned the functionality or the idea, the broad, beautiful, artistic idea of a shopping cart, you know, where a customer goes and puts something in their shopping cart, then checks out online. And Newegg wasn't having it. I really want to commend their legal team. Newegg's chief legal officer, Lee Cheng, the guy's a badass.
Yeah.
He really is a badass.
A little bit of a bulldog there.
Anyways, what's really funny about this is Sovereign. They found something to nitpick in this. This should have all gone away because Newegg won this court case. Something happened in the court case where, you know, like someone said 34 instead of 35.
It was the patent claim number.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're arguing about claim 35. We really should be arguing about claim 34 or something ridiculous like that. And it's like, well, 34 and 35 are part of the same sequence of claims. They're related. And the meat of the argument is in claim 34. So it's just a last-ditch effort.
Yeah, but anyway, they're jumping back in here, and they're trying to take this even higher. So here's what Chang says. Chang says, I hope they don't wuss out on this case. I hope they have the balls to try it. I am not optimistic that they will, because it would be a big mistake on their part to let the case go to trial. So he's actually hoping that they have the balls to do this. That's hilarious. That their Newegg's chief legal officers, you know, telling them to bring it on like that. It would probably be a good thing because it would shine more light on this kind of nonsense. All right, quickly mention Kim.com has stepped down from Mega as the, I guess, the CEO or whatever. He's now focusing on his new service, Baboom. It's going to be, it looks to be like a marriage of social networking, Google Music, and Bandcamp type of thing. But it's also going to have a lot of the major artists on there. He's got some mock-up here with Alicia Keys and stuff. I hope he doesn't forget the indie artists, but I mean, I think it's going to be cool just because I'll put Zweihander on there and I'll link people to it. So as long as I can link people to stuff, that's fine. The one thing that's interesting about this is he claims he will be paying artists what they deserve. The way they always talk about artists is a bit insulting, but you know, like, hey, how are we going to pay the artists? And there's an interesting article here you guys should read on Torrent Freak called "How Should Artists Get Paid?" Isn't a question, it's an insult, but that's sort of an aside. Anyway, Baboom, it looks pretty cool, and it's just going to pay the artists based upon ad revenue that comes in, and it's going to be a free service if you want to listen to it. So, all right, so we have a sponsor this time. You know, I've been always anti-sponsor type stuff because I'm always worried about like what it'll do for you guys. And I said,
but we like to eat.
Yeah, we like to eat. And you know, I said no to this a few times, and you showed it to me, and then you used it for an actual project.
Yes, we used it on the client project to evaluate its worthiness.
After I looked at it, I'm pretty convinced. And then, you know, Linus is using this, and so is Leo Laporte. They're both using this. So I said, you know what, let's do this.
Basically, in a nutshell, you can have a really nice professional looking website up and running in just a few minutes. And, you know, if you're a gearhead, you know, maybe this is not for you, but if you know somebody that runs a restaurant or that has a portfolio or they just want to put a blog online and they need something that's turnkey, easy, but also still very professional and very custom looking, Squarespace.com seems like it's a pretty good solution. This is a little site that we put together in about 5 minutes. It's based on one of the sample sites for a restaurant, but I was really impressed with how well this came out. You know, with a restaurant and a lot of sites, content is king, and you don't really necessarily need to hire a designer or somebody and do some totally custom something from the get-go. One other neat thing is that for developers, you can sign up and they'll give you SFTP and GET access for full control, so you can mess with the HTML and CSS and do a totally custom template. This is a really powerful feature. So if you guys want to check it out and learn more, head on over to squarespace.com. They've got over 20 award-winning themes that you can use as a basis before customizing for your site. They've got 24/7 support, so if you guys get stuck or you need anything, you can do that. And it's just $8 a month if you decide to sign up. With the offer code TechSyndicate9, you'll get 20% off your first purchase. So check them out.
All right, so it's time to talk about security. We've been out traveling around the world and having a lot of fun, and you know, I was surprised, Wendell, that I was not flagged when I got on the plane. They were just like, they were like, right this way, Mr. Bearded Person.
Yeah, I've been randomly selected a few times now. ... question mark.
It was fine. You know, we were traveling, and I'm with Kane, and Kane is wild all the time, which is hilarious because he's just always joking around with the TSA, and maybe that's a good thing, but he's always back there like carrying around like we've got a Steadicam, we've got a monopod shoved in a bag that I'm carrying on, and it's just a big thing. And I saw it, on the X-ray machine go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then someone came over and was like, "Oh, it's fine."
That's not a monopod; it's a bludgeoning stick. What are you talking about?
Like, yeah, exactly. So I got my bludgeoning stick on, and didn't need to use it because luckily I'm the good guy, and I was going to use it in case a bad guy showed up. I was like, hey, thank God I've got my bludgeoning stick. So you guys want me to have that on the plane, just in case you ever see me on a plane. Just know that I've got good stuff that can stop bad guys.
It's +1.
It's +1 to bludgeoning terrorists, but only terrorists, and they have to be humanoid. Anyway. It's enchanted. I was trying to get it enchanted in Seattle, but that's how things go. All right, so let's talk about what the NSA has been doing. Now, there's been a lot of encryption backdoor rumors and I guess alleged rumors floating around. People saying, hey, they put a backdoor in this. They got a backdoor in Intel's CPU. They got a backdoor in Windows. Well, the head of the NSA came out and he was like, listen, we need these backdoors and encryption is bad. And here's the reason we need it. We've got to stop, terrorists, cybercriminals, human traffickers, and others. Who the hell are the others? Wendell, who are the others?
Well, fortunately, we've got Ken White to explain that, because you can't leave something out there that's nebulous like that. It's like, we need the right to use lethal force against people, and just leave it hanging.
Yeah, okay. Against what people? Well, terrorists and human traffickers and others, of course.
And so over at Popat, we've got this really great article from Ken White. And he says, NSA code breaking, I am the other. And he goes on to explain that because he's interested in encryption, that he is one of the others, and that according to the NSA's own documentation, that he merits further investigation just by virtue of wanting to use encryption.
Well, but obviously, if you're using encryption, you're probably doing something awful because you obviously have something to hide.
Well, and he goes on to say, it's like, I am the other because I believe the security state and its representatives habitually lie, both directly and by misleading language. And here we have the director of the NSA who lied to Congress. And so, what's up? It's a non sequitur.
The funny thing is that the same politicians that have put this into power, put this nonsense, unleashed it on the public, and the same people that run the NSA, if they were asked to, release their email passwords and such, or if they were asked to, because I'm sure they all use encrypted forms of communication. They would be crazy not to. Every time they log into their email, I'm sure it's encrypted. And if we asked them to, turn off the encryption, they'd be like, what, are you crazy? So when you turn it around and you put it on them, they're the good guys and they need the encryption, but all the others out there shouldn't have the encryption. It makes no sense. It's a double standard, and it's not what a free society should be doing. It really doesn't make any sense to me at all. So the one comment from Ken down here is really funny. So what was someone asking down here in the comments?
Ken White was talking about some of the court cases and things like that where the NSA is sort of encouraging the domestic law enforcement to conceal the source of their leads and things like that. And so one of the legal arguments put forth in a case where somebody was arrested for nothing, basically, was the government was actually arguing that it's the equivalent of saying his right to be free of arrest without cause was eliminated when we arrested him without cause.
Naturally, that makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So the fact that this apparatus would not be used for domestic purposes is a ridiculous and just untruthful claim that the agency is making.
Sometimes I'm not sure if the powers that be are like 80 IQ or just chaotic evil or both.
Probably both.
That's so dangerous when you get people that are like 80 IQ, put them in power. And
I don't know what. This machine has an incredible power to turn transparency. And it's like, well, if it's this transparent with citizens, why don't we turn this on the officials and see how much transparency we've got and see how much because didn't Jefferson say that transparent government was important for a properly functioning government? That would be awesome. Yeah,
but they would squirm like crazy.
Yeah,
it'd be like putting their nuts in a vice.
This is on the Linux kernel mailing list. It's like, because the way that the NSA has actually snuck some of these backdoors in is just gone in and paid off programmers effectively. So like with PGP, apparently that's how they did it with PGP, is they just paid the programmer to introduce a very subtle weakness And it's like, ta-da, you work for the state now. You're a government agent. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, here, just introduce a weakness and you'll be fine. Supposedly, that's something like what went down with TGP, but the details are really sketchy on that.
So, I mean, the implication is that this has been going on, and just because this one came to light does not mean that there are not several other instances of the same sort of thing. In fact, there probably are.
Yes, and so this is a thread about the same thing on the Linux kernel mailing list, and so it's like, oh, this is Linux, it's open source, it'll be scrutinized, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, the math is solid, but the implementation may be lacking. And here, there's a thread here, somebody is saying that there's evidence of that with the IPsec implementation on Linux, but there are also a lot of counterpoints for this, so we just thought we'd mention it as part of the paranoia around this.
Well, we do have someone trying to do something. Not Republican, a Democrat, Rush D. Holt from New Jersey, and he's trying to introduce some legislation that will effectively make it so that the NSA or any other government agency has to go and get permission to crack encryption or do what they're doing.
Put in backdoors or weaknesses.
Yeah, whenever they're doing stuff like that, they have to come to the Congress and get permission. It just takes off their claws. It cuts them off right at the knuckle.
His quote, this whole law is basically around this one quote from the article, and that is, we pay them to spy, Mr. Hart said. But if in the process they degrade the security of the encryption we all use, it is a net national disservice. And that's really what the law's about.
Yeah, we were talking about this. Oh, here's Schneer. This goes great into Schneer's article because Schneer is talking about just how ridiculous it is in the first place, because they're trying to stop these things that are almost they're almost like natural disasters. I mean, you can collect intelligence and find out about bombings. You can collect intelligence and find out about freak things that are going to happen. But a lot of the things are freak and almost as random as, say, a tornado. And trying to stop them, you're probably going to end up doing as much bad as good. Plus, you're creating a fear state. So, Wendell, let's talk about what Schneer is talking about here on his blog.
This article is best summarized by a couple of paragraphs at the very end of the article. It's a great article. You should read it. But it's about how we as Americans have got to relearn how to accept risk. And there's risk in getting out of the bed in the morning. And he says, security measures, or no, I'm sorry, he says, when you implement measures to mitigate the effects of the random risks of the world, you're safer as a result. When you implement measures to reduce the risks from your fellow human beings, the human beings adapt and you get less risk reduction than you'd expect, and you also get more side effects because we all adapt. We need to relearn how to recognize the trade-off that comes with risk management, especially risk from our fellow human beings. We need to relearn how to accept risk is essential to human progress and to our free society. The more we expect technology to protect us from people in the same way it protects us from nature, the more we will sacrifice the very values of our society in a futile attempt to achieve this security.
When Bruce Schneer talks, everybody shuts up and listens. He's one of like 4 or 5 people in the world that you should do that for.
Yeah, we really can't summarize it any better than that. I mean, that really hits home.
In somewhat related news, Chad Dixon, he's been teaching people how to beat lie detectors. And he's going to be going to prison for 8 months for it.
Wait. So lie detectors are an accepted staple of modern science now? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and this guy, figured out some methods to beat them. I mean, don't they train, when you go to the FBI or the CIA, don't they train the operatives how to beat these anyway? I mean, this is like knowledge. Are we not allowed to share knowledge? Now you go to prison for sharing knowledge. It's not like he's sharing methods for, killing people or anything like that.
Yeah, Jefferson, there's a great quote from Jefferson. I am mortified to be told that in the USA, the sale of a book can become the subject of an inquiry, and a criminal inquiry too. This guy, what happened is he was given a class, and these agents, these sleeper agents or whatever you want to call them, were part of the class, and they put their hand up and were like, I have a secret to hide. And he just looked away and was like, whatever, moving right along. Because it was just, they were basically interrupting his class. He's like, don't care, I'm just going to keep on teaching. And they construed that somehow as a thing to convict him, which is pretty ridiculous.
They do this a lot. I've read so many articles and seen so many reports where they put these sleeper agents in there because they want to convict a certain person. They want to go after this person. They suspect them of something, and they basically push, their agenda upon this person to the point where it becomes almost a farce, and then they somehow convict him anyway. A lot of times the person is just trying to I remember one thing recently I read, it was in Los Angeles, something like this was going on, and it was getting, creepy to the point where the guy involved actually called the authorities on the sleeper agents and said, hey, I'm worried about these guys.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It was like, I was just drinking and I was talking with this guy at the bar and he seemed pretty serious about blowing something up,
yeah,
so I thought I
exactly,
better report
exactly.
it. I think that guy still got brought up on charges
He
though.
did. He absolutely did. It was on account of his beard. Okay, I think we need to go and arrest Penn and Teller because on their show bullshit a while back. It's time for a citizen's arrest. Somebody stop them.
We're going to arrest Penn and Teller for explaining. They actually explain that it's like the easiest way to defeat it is to apparently like clench your butt, and they show that on TV.
Well then, it's that easy.
I guess we're next up too. Damn it, we're gonna have to edit this part.
I didn't. They can't find me.
Lie detector results are inadmissible in court.
Oh really?
Still, yeah. Haven't been since like 1929. They cover that in the Penn and Teller show.
All right, so Google is actually accelerating their encryption. They're encrypting a lot of their data, and a lot of this is because of the NSA spying. So,
And this is a different kind of encryption. This is the elliptic curve encryption. It's every different session has its own key, which makes it harder to defeat.
mm-hmm. And also they're going forward with their lawsuit against the NSA because we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The NSA would not allow, or actually the U.S. government would not allow Microsoft and Google and various other companies to release the FISA court. I guess rulings.
The secret rulings that gave them the secret gag orders to involve the secret work that they're doing, and they want to talk about the secret work.
So now we'll see what happens with this. The NSA has tried to block this lawsuit, but it's now going to proceed, despite all of the attempts to stop it. All right, let's talk about some hardware and science and all that fun stuff, shall we?
Yeah, let's switch gears because it's just this crazy spying apparatus is a leviathan. It's not going to be taken down overnight. It's going to require a vigilant and informed citizenry to take care of. But
and hopefully not more than that.
We've harped enough on that. Let's go to hardware.
Gigabit is getting a little slow. I'm doing the network here in the house, and I'm running 2 cables to my main machine and 2 cables to the NAS, and we're using a managed router and all that because gigabit's not fast enough if you're storing your video files in the other room. We've been needing to move away from gigabit for a long time, but fiber is extremely expensive. But Intel has some new technology. It's not that much more expensive than what you would think, and it's 100 gigabits per second. That's pretty fast. I think I can handle that.
Yeah, Intel's basically found a way to put the lasers directly on the silicon, which should remove a lot of the barriers, the cost barriers associated with getting these in the data center.
Yeah, so if we can get these in the data center and then eventually into the home, I'll be really happy because right now wireless AC is like encroaching on the speed of gigabit router. Asus, their next transformer pad is going to be Tegra 4, and it's going to have a 2560 by 1600 display. That is awesome. I really need one of those 10.1-inch Android tablet. That's going to be really nice.
We need one.
Yep.
Asus, where are you at?
2 cameras, of course, 1.2 megapixel front and 5 megapixel rear-facing camera, 2 gigs of RAM. I wish it was a little bit more there. And you can get it in 32 or 64 gigabyte flavors.
The new Surface is going to be based on the Tegra, but no one cares about the Surface RT.
Then the Surface Pro is going to be Haswell.
The Surface Pro was not a terrible form factor for laptops. It's actually not bad.
It's smaller than an Ultrabook in most cases, and I think it looks pretty sleek. I don't know. Yeah, it's not that bad. Oh yeah, so the EVGA GTX 780 classified that we took a look at, and I think we were at the World of Tanks EVGA Twitch party. So we're running around there. There's all kinds of like web celebrities bumping around. I actually hung out with Linus a lot while Kane was running around bouncing all over. Like he was jumping on every web celebrity's head, and it was kind of hilarious. Anyway, so they had the GTX 780 there, the classified, and we didn't get a chance to test it there, but the benchmarks are coming out. And the overclocking results are coming out, and it looks to be the fastest GTX 780 on the market. Even beating,
Well, it was huge.
Yeah, it was like 2 inches higher or something ridiculous like that. So instead of extending it and making it longer, they made it taller. But that's pretty smart. And it looks like it's actually beating the Titan in some benchmarks when it's overclocked. That's damned impressive. So yeah, if you're looking for a GTX 780, and you've got no budget, this might be the one to go with. All right, Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and their smartwatch.
They had a
Smartwatches.
big press event. It was pretty crazy.
How do you feel about these smartwatches?
It looks interesting. I have to give it credit. It does look interesting that you can get your text messages and make calls and do stuff from your watch. That's the same, it's interesting. That's the same psychology that you see in a lot of Google Glass ads. Is like Google Glass is like there's this epidemic we have of people staring down at their phones needs to end. And so Samsung's like, we're gonna do it with a watch, and Google's like, we're gonna do it with glasses. Well, it's interesting to see who wins.
The funny thing about the watch is that we were out in where the hell were we? Seattle. Kane's running around with the Pebble, right? And so people would be talking to him, and he would get a text message, and while he was talking, he would like glance over at his watch to see if if the text message was anything dire. And the people talking to him be like, "Oh, are you bored? You're checking your watch." So it was kind of like that. Our society just knows that when you're looking at a watch, you're either tired or bored, or you've got to be somewhere else, or it's a program response. Are these new watches going to reprogram the way we deal with this motion? Like looking at your watch, like, hey, I got to be somewhere. I don't know. I mean, it felt kind of weird because I'd be talking to him as well, like on the train or something. He'd be like touching his watch. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Are you James Bond over there? So,
you ever see the episode of Arrested Development with the surrogate? It's like there are some times that I really wish I had that sort of functionality where I had a surrogate with like an earpiece in, and it's like, okay, this is the part where I'm needed. I do my thing, and then I just disappear, and the surrogate can deal with whatever else.
I don't think I've ever seen that show.
That would be awesome.
Maybe I should see it. People keep saying I should see it.
If somehow Google Glass or the Pebble Watch translates into being able to do that, bring it on.
Let's talk about this internet TV business, because it was allowed in New York, and now it's being shut down in D.C.
It made it through the federal court in New York, so theoretically it should apply federally, but in D.C. they shut it down.
It's the same as like an antenna on the roof, guys. Come on. What the hell?
Yeah, cable companies are well, I guess media companies, not really cable companies, but media companies are very against people, getting a format shifted over the air signal. That makes them real uncomfortable. If
the cable companies were in charge when we have first contact with aliens, they're just going to shoot them because they're going to be like, we don't understand it, better kill it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what's going to happen. All right, Elon Musk has developed some. We're talking about science now. I've switched over. Let me go ahead and pause that. Elon Musk has a new way to develop rockets by flailing his hands in front of a computer screen. This is very Iron Man-esque. You guys should go take a look at this. He's working on some rockets for SpaceX. I mean, is he going to build an Iron Man suit? What's this guy up to?
My favorite part of the video was not the 3D motions with the hand. He's using the leap motion, the same ones that we demoed.
Mm-hmm.
But they were talking about his 3D printer, and while we're slumming it, making things out of PLA and ABS plastic, his 3D printer can make things out of titanium and Inconel. So yeah, that was crazy. He was talking about it, and he's like, "Oh look, it lays down a fine powder, and then a laser hits it, and then he pulls out a part, and he's like, see, it's fine." And I was reading another report because of this, and it's like 28% of 3D printing in the U.S. now is printing a completely finished good, not a prototype and not a test unit, something that is completely finished. 28%. That's crazy.
We need that printer. It probably costs about $1 billion, but
yeah, a 3D printer that can print out of titanium and Inconel. Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, but we need it. All right, so you guys should take a look at that just for that part of the video. Elon Musk is someone else you guys should keep an eye on because he does his own thing and he doesn't care about what anybody else says. A lot of people are stuck in the past, and his IQ is probably about twice that of most of his peers. So,
can you imagine what would happen if we were giving him billions of dollars instead of Halliburton?
We probably already have wormholes and everything. Teleportation would be figured out. I mean, it would be like the Jetsons or something.
We'd be mining the asteroid belt with our thorium reactors.
Yeah, and the entire Earth would be clean. I mean, it would be like, all right, I guess Elon Musk for Emperor of the Earth.
Benevolent Emperor.
We hope it doesn't go to his head and change him like psychologists say it will.
Yeah.
So solar panels just got a lot more efficient thanks to a breakthrough at North Carolina State University. They have solar panel people there in North Carolina.
Well, there's not an oil industry there.
Yeah, I'm giving them hell. I'm allowed.
Lack of oil equals solar prowess.
So what they've done here is solar panels are generally about they lose a lot of they're inefficient. They lose a lot of their energy. If they insert a very thin film of gallium arsenide, it basically loses nothing, like no energy loss, and they can cope with the energy of 70,000 suns. So they can crank it up. Now, they do focus the energy. They concentrate the solar energy using lenses. But I mean, with current technology, it's going to be no more than 4,000 suns worth of energy. But this is going to greatly improve the efficiency of solar panels, and they've been improving rapidly. It's going to get to a point where it's almost a no-brainer to go with solar paneling or alternative energy. And if you're not going with those things, then you're obviously doing it for the wrong reasons.
It's got to improve efficiency, but also lower the total cost, because this is totally a layman interpretation, but by layering the cells, it's like we're going to put in a top cell, and that's going to capture 60% of the energy, and then we're going to put on another cell below that, and that's going to capture 60% of the energy the other cell didn't catch, blah, blah, blah. You got diminishing returns on your third, fourth, or fifth layer. At what point is it more expensive to add the other layer than to just let the energy go to waste?
All right, we're going to end with this. We're not going to talk about video games because we did a lot of video game coverage at PAX, and everyone's like, hey, we missed the tech, so this is all like no gaming tech. But you guys should go back and watch the PAX videos. We did a lot of PAX videos, and it's kind of funny. The audience was very demanding to the point where I wanted to strangle some of you guys, and I will next time. I will find you guys. It was like
I can't read.
It was like, well, yeah, I would release one video and it would be like a video game or an indie game, and everyone would comment like, what the hell is this? More hardware. So I'd release a hardware video or two. And after like the second hardware video, like, what the hell, man? Where's the indie games? You guys suck. So Linus got on there and trolled us. It was hilarious. If I could find the comment, it would be hilarious. But I'll put it on the screen. Linus got on there and he was like, I demand, more videos about the pixies that eat gold and poop chocolate or something like that. It was hilarious. But that got a lot of votes. I'm not sure where it is. But yeah, it was hilarious. Thanks, Linus, for that. And it was cool hanging out with you at the party. Star Trek Into Darkness. The writer, he's not been liking a lot of what the fans have been saying, and he came out and kind of, trash talked a bit with the fans and said, you know what, if you don't like it, pitch a better movie. Okay. So, Wendell?
Well, it's not really we're pitching a better movie. It's just that somebody needs to sell the rights to Netflix and let them deal with it because they'll do it right.
I watched the movie recently. I wasn't going to watch it. Because I'm a huge Star Trek fan and I didn't want to be disappointed because it looked like there was going to be a lot of parallels with the original Part 2, Wrath of Khan, and then pulling those parallels into this universe made absolutely no sense to me because Kirk doesn't have a son, the Klingons never killed Kirk's son, the Khan was way different in this version, and then Spock's yelling Khan. Why were they trying to tie the two together? It hurts my head. And they're also throwing in a bunch of cliche Hollywood nonsense as well. My head started hurting really bad. Why? Why did they do this? I don't remember what's the name of the girl. They just called her Thumbnail, and also introducing Thumbnail. So you guys should watch this video response here. It's the honest trailer Star Trek Into Darkness.
The Screen Junkies people did it. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, they did a pretty damn good job, and it has 20,000 upvotes and 741 downvotes from 741 downvotes are from the executives making Star Trek 3. Probably. Just give it back to the nerds, guys. You've got J.J. Abrams, who's not really a Star Trek nerd at all, making Star Trek movies. I understand Hollywood likes fun movies. Will Wheaton said it was his favorite Star Trek movie because it was fun. I think he was watching it while he was drunk. Will Wheaton, I challenge you to watch it again while you're not drinking your epic Woot Stout, which was pretty good.
This, if you really think about it, the societal climate that we're in right now, where technology and technological innovations are on the tips of everyone's tongue with the NSA spying and the government stuff and terrorism and blah, blah, blah. That is some incredible social commentary that can be used in a new Star Trek series. And that would make for an incredible series.
Well, they had a lot of the tropes going on there that kind of tie into what's going on in the modern world, but they more tie into like the general tropes that you see in every movie that comes out recently with the bad guy that wants to get caught, but he's also doing this for his own interest, and and the powers that be are really doing something evil behind the scenes, or like the good guys, the main whatever, good guys are doing bad things. That kind of stuff is all in there, and that kind of can tie into what's going on in the real world, but it's loose at best. Anyway.
The best way to keep government honest is to keep it transparent. That's true whether now or in the 24th century.
All right, so that's pretty much all for the tech. And we're going to be setting this room up quickly, hopefully. And we'll get you back to the nuts out of here.